Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're not doing your typical movie review. We're actually going to dive headfirst into a pretty wild, high-stakes thought experiment, the real-world, logistical, and military nightmare of an actual giant monster attack. I mean, have you ever actually stopped, looked at your city's skyline, and seriously asked yourself, what if Godzilla was real? Now, for this survival briefing, we're framing the entire thing around the 2016 film Shin Godzilla. Why that one? Well, out of all the adaptations since 1954, this specific version gives us arguably the most grounded, terrifyingly realistic look at exactly how a catastrophic attack like this would play out today. Here is our tactical action plan for today's explainer. First, the Shin Godzilla threat. Second, priority 1, mass evacuation. Third, the nuclear weapon dilemma. Fourth, the coagulant strategy. And finally, number 5, the true enemy. Bureaucracy. Section 1, the Shin Godzilla threat. Like I mentioned, we're using the 2016 iteration as our baseline. To formulate any kind of real response, we need a realistic scenario, and this film really nails the terrifying step-by-step reality of the disaster. Honestly, to stop the threat, we have to truly understand the sheer scale of what we're actually dealing with here. And what a biological nightmare it is. We're talking about a giant aquatic creature born from radioactive contamination. This isn't just a really big animal, it's a heavily armored, radioactive beast that literally constantly adapts to its surroundings to survive. It shoots these devastating atomic blasts from its mouth and its tail, and everywhere it walks, it just leaves this deadly trail of residual radiation. And the kicker? Its hide is so incredibly thick that our conventional military missiles just bounce right off. They're completely useless. Section 2. Priority 1. Mass evacuation. So before any real counterattack can even begin, we have to clear the board. Evacuating civilians is absolutely the utmost priority. But man, this becomes a complete logistical nightmare, especially when you factor in population density. Just try to imagine completely evacuating a dense metropolis like Tokyo, or even your own city, in just a matter of hours. It's practically impossible. And think about what these people are actually running from. They aren't just dodging giant footsteps. They're trying to survive the monster's direct attacks, massive atomic breath blasts cutting through buildings, and that silent, lingering threat of residual radiation sickness. Plus, as if all that wasn't enough, they're in extreme danger of collateral damage from our own military forces who are desperately firing everything they have at the beast. Section 3. The nuclear weapon dilemma. Which brings us to a terrifying strategic dead end. Sure, capturing the beast sounds ideal on paper, right? It lets us study it, and it limits massive damage to the city. But that completely fails because its atomic breath just melts right through any physical containment we have. Plus, the creature never stops adapting. The longer it lives, the deadlier it gets. So capture is out. That leaves us with one grim alternative: kill. Lethal force is literally our only viable option to permanently stop this thing's continuous evolution. But how on earth do you kill something that shrugs off conventional missiles? Well, humanity is forced into a very dark corner, considering thermonuclear weapons. Yes, dropping a nuke could potentially take the creature out, but it's an absolutely devastating choice. Using a nuclear bomb on your own soil guarantees catastrophic collateral damage. Not to mention, if you nuke an already highly radioactive, mutating creature, you risk triggering some totally unpredictable, nightmare-level radioactive consequences. Section 4. The coagulant strategy. Desperate to avoid nuking their own city, experts in the film scramble and come up with a highly surgical, 3-step action plan as a tactical alternative. Here's how it goes. Step 1. You bait the monster into using its atomic breath, forcing it to drain its energy reserves. Step 2. While it's completely exhausted and trying to recharge, you quickly knock the massive beast down to the ground. And Step 3. You immediately pump it full of a specialized blood coagulant. The ingenuity of this strategy is just brilliant. By injecting the coagulant, the goal is to literally freeze the monster from the inside out. This completely bypasses that impossible armored hide. But even more importantly, freezing the monster stops its biological adaptation dead in its tracks. It permanently neutralizes the threat without blanketing millions of innocent people in nuclear fallout. It really is the absolute best-case scenario for survival. Section 5. The true enemy. Bureaucracy. But here's the thing, a perfect plan means absolutely nothing if you can't actually execute it in time. Fighting a radioactive leviathan is almost secondary to fighting our own human systems. Look, we desperately need a fast emergency response, but the reality, it gets delayed by rigid policy restrictions. We need a unified command, yet authority is hopelessly fragmented across a dozen different government branches. And when we finally need international coordination to share resources or intel, we run face first into multi-government friction and just endless red tape. There's a realization here that hits incredibly hard, mostly because it is just so grounded in reality. Sometimes, the resources are there to help, but the hands of the government are tied due to policy restrictions. Think about that. The coagulants, the heavy machinery, the trained personnel, all of those resources might be perfectly ready to go, but endless government debates and red tape could literally delay the response until the entire city is just ashes. So, to wrap up this explainer, the ultimate takeaway is pretty clear. In a real-world scenario, humanity's absolute greatest challenge wouldn't even be the monster itself. It would be organizing our own fragmented, messy systems in time to actually save the city. In the literal fight of our lives, our survival hinges entirely on our ability to cooperate and cut through our own administrative roadblocks. Which leaves us with a pretty chilling final thought to ponder as you log off today. We've talked about the military strategy, the science, the government failures, but on a purely individual level, what would you do if Godzilla turned out to be real? Seriously, if those emergency sirens started blaring right now, right outside your window, and the ground started shaking, how would you survive? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking the big questions.